Shamalagraha, accepting the sinful activities. Suchimuke, named Suchimuka. Narake, in the hell. Nipatati, falls down. Yatra, where. Ha, indeed. Vita Graham, as a money-grabbing ghost. Papa Purusham, very sinful man. Dharmaraj Purusha, the commanding men of Yamaraj. Vyaka Iva, like expert weavers. Sarvata, all over. Angeshu, on the limbs of the body. Sutrai, by threads. Parivyayanti, stitch. That was a lot of Sanskrit. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, starting from text 31. There are men and women in the world who sacrifice human beings to Bhairava or Bajrakali and then eat their victims' flesh. Those who perform such sacrifices are taken after death to the abode of Yamaraj, where their victims, having taken the form of Rakshasas, cut them to pieces with sharpened swords. Just as in this world, the man-eaters drink their victims' blood, dancing and singing in jubilation. Their victims now enjoy drinking the blood of the sacrificers and celebrating in the same way. In this life, some people give shelter to animals and birds that come to them for protection in the village or forest. And after making them believe that they will be protected, such people pierce them with lances or threads and play with them like toys, giving them great pain. After death, such people are brought by the assistance of Yamaraj to the hell known as Sulaprota, where the bodies are pierced with sharp needle-like lances. They suffer from hunger and thirst, and sharp-beaked birds, such as vultures and herons, come at them from all sides to tear at their bodies. Tortured and suffering, they can then remember the sinful activities they committed in the past. Those who in this life are like envious serpents, always angry and giving pain to other living entities, fall after death into the hell known as Dandakshuka. My dear king, in this hell there are serpents with 5 or 7 hoods. The serpents eat such sinful persons, such as snakes eat mice. Those who in this life confine other living entities in dark wells, granaries, or mountain caves are put after death into the hell known as Avata Nirodhana. There they themselves are pushed into dark wells, where poisonous fumes and smoke suffocate them, and they suffer very severely. A householder who receives guests or visitors with cruel glances, as if to burn them to ashes, is put into the hell called Paryavartana, where he is gazed at by hard-eyed vultures, herons, crows, and similar birds, which suddenly swoop down and pluck out his eyes with great force. This one has a short purport. According to the Vedic etiquette, even an enemy who comes to a householder's home should be received in such a gentle way that he forgets that he has come to the home of an enemy. A guest who has come to one's home should be received very politely. If he is unwanted, the householders should not stare at him with blinking eyes. For one who does so will be put into the hell known as Paryavartana after death. And there many ferocious birds like vultures, crows, and cockneys will suddenly come upon him and pluck out his eyes. Then continue with text 36, which is our final text that we're reading today. One who in this world or this life is very proud of his wealth always thinks, I'm so rich. Who can equal me? His vision is twisted, and he is always afraid that someone will take his wealth. Indeed, he even suspects his superiors. His face and heart dry up at the thought of losing his wealth, and therefore he always looks like a wretched fiend. He is not in any way able to obtain actual happiness, and he does not know what it is to be free from anxiety. Because of the sinful things he does to earn money, augment his wealth, and protect it, he is put into the hell called Suchi Muka, where the officials of Yamaraj punish him by stitching thread through his entire body like weavers manufacturing cloth. Purport. When one possesses more wealth than necessary, he certainly becomes very proud. This is the situation of men in modern civilization. According to the Vedic culture, Brahmanas do not possess anything, whereas Kshatriyas possess riches, but only for performing sacrifices and other noble activities as prescribed in the Vedic injunctions. A Vaishya also earns money honestly through agriculture, cow protection, and some trade. The Shudra gets some money, however, he'll spend it lavishly without discrimination, or simply accumulate it for no purpose. Because in this age, there are no qualified Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, or Vaishyas. Almost everyone is a Shudra. Fellow Shudra Sambhava. Therefore, the Sudra mentality is causing great harm to modern civilization. A Sudra does not know how to use money to render transcendental loving service to them. Money is also called Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is always engaged in the service of Narayan. Wherever there is money, it must be engaged in the service of Lord Narayan. Everyone should use his money to spread the great transcendental movement of Krishna consciousness. If one does not spend money for this purpose, but accumulates more than necessary, he will certainly become proud of the money he illegally possesses. The money actually belongs to Krishna, who says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yagya Tapsam Sarvalokam Heshvaram. I am the true enjoyer of sacrifices and penances, and I am the owner of all the planets. Therefore, nothing belongs to anyone but Krishna. One who possesses more than he needs should spend it for Krishna. Unless one does so, he will become puffed up because of his false possessions, and therefore he will be punished in the next life, as described herein. Om Ganatiramandasya Kinanjanashlakya Chakshmatamyana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sarigaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. So we are continuing our tour of the hellish planets, seeing all of the various punishments that await those who are committing various sinful activities. These ones are the ones that we read today, for the most part, are some pretty intense sort of sinful activities. Human sacrifice, cannibalism, torturing animals, the various sort of markers of psychopathy. And we read of the various punishments that such people will suffer. If they protect an animal and then turn on it and kill it. Of course, the first reading of this does seem to be something like animal torture, things like that. But actually, if one looks at the meat industry, it very much actually falls into line with this. Especially, actually, the so-called humane slaughter movement. Of course, factory farming is extremely sinful. But I don't think, the cows or chickens or pigs or whatever think in, a traditional factory farm, they are at any point protected. While those who do free range, so-called humane meat production make the animal think they are protected. They give it a very nice life. They think, oh, I will enjoy in this way. I will be protected throughout my life in this way. Until they are ultimately killed. Other descriptions that we hear today are people who are envious, who always want to give pain to each other. That are snake-like, who unlawfully imprison others. But then also, we hear about the householders who receives guests or visitors with cruel glances. I'm not sure exactly what qualifies as a cruel glance, but I know that there have been occasions in my life where I've had, a guest or a visitor that I really did not feel like talking to right at that moment. So I don't know if I committed level of sinful activity where I don't know if my glances were cruel. But if one transgresses this Vedic etiquette, then one will have to suffer the consequences. The Vedic civilization was very advanced and very, one could say, civilized. Vedic culture was very civilized. As Prabhupada explains here in the purport, even an enemy that comes to one's house should be so nicely received that they forget while they are there that they are your enemy. So actually, this is a very important part of Vedic culture, that everyone should be made to feel welcome. And this also promotes social cohesion, one could say. Not that everyone is, eyeing each other with anger or anything like that, but that everybody should be received nicely. And it is also a benefit to the householders, because in a traditional Vedic culture, many times one's guests or visitors will be mendicants, will be sadhus. And in receiving these sadhus, they will be benefited. I do not have, personally, in this lifetime, so much experience with householder life. But even, speaking from personal experience, the preparation for householder life, trying to arrange things so that one can go into that ashram, are quite complicated. One has to think of so many things, which, depending on one's mentality and from one's point of view, are material considerations. How to get Lakshmi, how to find a partner, etc. And the householders, traditional Vedic culture, would be reminded of spiritual practice that for most ashrams, the husband would have learned in Gurukul. Or for most varnas, the husband would have learned in Gurukul and be reminded of spiritual instruction to give the proper weight to his spiritual and material affairs, the proper balance. And so he wouldn't give cruel glances to the sadhus that are coming. And probably the most relevant verse for today, society, is talking of one who is very proud of his wealth and who is thinking that who can equal me? I am so rich. And that he is always anxious and envious. This is probably one of the most relevant verses for today, where there are so many examples of people who embody this. And likewise, the wider culture itself also embodies this mentality in that, you know, one should just try to make one's life very comfortable. And if one can get a very high-paying job or start one's own business or something like that, then it is very good. And one should be focused on what one can earn from one's occupation. And really, if you look at the mentality of today, when it comes to employment, the reason for employment is seen to be to make money, simply to provide a livelihood. However, the Vedic viewpoint is slightly different. Yes, like earning a livelihood and maintaining oneself is a part of it, but the main focus of Vedic life is dharma, is what is proper and improper action for a person situated a certain stage and status of life. So it's not that, you know, especially the Dvidyas, the twice-born, the three higher castes, looked at their occupations just as means of maintaining their livelihood. They had a reason and a role in the social order that was actually the main reason that they were doing their occupation, rather than just collecting material resources. Because everything in the Vedic culture is based around dharma. And pretty much nothing in the modern world is based around dharma. There are, of course, many translations that one could give for dharma, but one could think of it as duty. Very few people think about the duties that they have beyond the very basic obligations that they have, if even that. And this creates havoc both in people's personal lives and in the world at large. because people are thinking, just let me get resources, let me take a partner simply for my sense enjoyment, uh, and not thinking of what is actually good for the structure and of society. Uh, there are a couple of us talking the other day uh, about certain agricultural corporations. Uh, and it goes to show this point that uh, their activities go to show this point that the focus is on money instead of actually doing their duty, which is producing food, making sure the food is distributed, making sure that the land and the animals are taken care of. What these companies were doing is that they sell certain types of pesticides or something like Roundup, or weed killers or things like that. But uh, they're powerful enough to basically kill everything, except the company also sells certain seeds that have been genetically modified to contain certain genetic codes, which make them resistant to the specific formulation of poison that the company sells. So the companies goes to farmers and they buy the poison and they buy the seeds, and now they can only grow seeds from that company. And of course, part of the genetic modification is that the plants that grow from these seeds do not produce seeds themselves. So you, for the next year, you have to buy again from the company. And then the next year you have to buy again. And this is just extremely sinful activity of destroying the land for profit. What to speak of Kshatriyas, the various, or so-called Kshatriyas, the various politicians who are in the responsible roles of government that are supposed to give protection to the people. But due to various reasons, both monetary and because they have been taken over by unintelligent ideologies, are not actually providing the protection that is required for society to function properly. And this actually has a very detrimental effect on pretty much everything. I know in certain places, in certain large cities, they have made it a policy to all but ignore shoplifting. So the district attorneys will, in many cases, decline to prosecute shoplifters. And then people are very surprised for some reason when the businesses that were once in those places start to move out of that location, because simply they cannot survive when their product is being stolen. And then people complain, oh, why are these companies moving out of these cities and these neighborhoods? We should have them here. Where will we buy our things? Or where will we get our things from? And then also, most responsible should be the brahmanas. The influence of wealth and ideology in academia is an extremely huge problem. In that actually, what the Brahminical platform is supposed to be is that Brahmanas are supposed to be very renounced, because then they can actually be independent. They, in general, should not have, according to the Vedic system, the traditional Vedic system, a very opulent position or official position, should not have a job in the sense that we think of it, but should give advice impartially for everyone. The present state of academia is very different from that. Basically everything, especially in the science world, which is most of my experience in academia, everything runs on money. So you get grants to study things, and that is basically how you make your living if you're a researcher, where you get money for yourself, for travel, for any grad students that you may have, for equipment if you're that sort of lab, or that sort of research group, etc. But because of the influence of wealth, the influence of money on the academic system, there are many things that cannot be researched, practically speaking. Things that are not practical are harder to study because they do not have so much funding, but also things that even among impractical or practical subjects, even things that are not currently in vogue, that are not hot in the field right now, will have a very hard time being funded. And actually, some of the most fundamental questions that in physics are not being looked at so much because they just can't get funding. For example, the foundations of quantum mechanics. What actually does quantum mechanics mean? What is the proper interpretation? Does not get so much funding necessarily because it's just not that popular. Physicists don't really want to think about philosophy and what does it actually mean, even if it is a very physics related question. So it is simply not talked about. Because the focus is on wealth instead of duty. It is the duty of the brahmanas to provide knowledge and to lead society, and to give wisdom to society. It's the duty of the kshatriyas to give protection, and the duty of the vaishyas to provide material resources, food, wealth, various opulences, things like that. But because of the mentality these days of the lack of duty, nobody is following and the world is in disarray. If one looks at the zeitgeist, the mentality of people today, it is very far removed from duty. There's no idea of an ethics of duty. Instead, only a sort of what one could call ethics of consent. As long as all of the people are consenting, then there is nothing that can be wrong about that. Of course, they sometimes redefine who is allowed to count when they're saying who's deciding whether they want to who is deciding for certain actions, in that, you know, some of these effects are far wider than just the people in the vicinity, in the immediate transaction. And we see this everywhere, kind of, you know, on the business side. There's no view of dharma in terms of externalities, in that if two people just consent to some business transaction, you know, I will produce this thing and give it to you, and it does not matter where I, you know, throw the waste product, and then downstream everybody is suffering. But the people consented to this transaction. What to speak of, you know, the fishes and the woodland creatures that are affected by this breach of responsibility. Many people today actually don't think that people have a responsibility to their own children if they are in a certain location, and that there is no moral issue in killing them as long as the mother consents before a certain time frame. These sorts of things are actually the results of a loss of duty, which is the core of the Vedic system. So we should actually think, what is our responsibility? What is our dharma to the rest of society? How are we acting in a way that is actually uplifting not just ourselves but also everybody else? Of course, the ultimate way to do this is Krishna consciousness. You know, the chanting of Hare Krishna, the distribution of prasadam, etc. But also the way to both facilitate those things and to reach the circle of compassion even wider, is the establishment of Varnashram Dharma, which is meant to give people a peaceful platform by which they can progress in spiritual life from whatever platform that they are currently at, and ultimately reach the higher goal, the highest goal, whether in this lifetime or in a future one. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'll stop here, ask for any comments, questions, etc. Anybody?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Thakur Prabhu.
Thank you for your class. Don't really have any question, not a lot to add, but I do want to mention that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary for text 35 makes, which discusses the angry glances if one fails to receive guests warmly, which is the prescribed dharma for householders. They must receive everyone warmly. Even an enemy should forget that he is an enemy. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes mention of the there are two different types of guests. They are categorized as those who are actually invited by the household with the host. They are referred to as abhyagatan. And then opposed to this, he mentions the guests who come without prior notice. They are referred to as atitin. Srila Prabhupada has spoken about this numerous times in lectures, that there are these two different types of guests: those who are invited or are expected, and those who show up unexpectedly. The duty of a householder is that even the guest who comes unexpectedly is supposed to be received very warmly. And it means also that they are fed. For the householder to feed guests is a very important aspect of the prescribed duty for householders. And actually not even just guests. Srila Prabhupada elaborates in the 7th canto, chapter about the duty of householders. Householders are responsible for feeding everyone, not just guests, even people who are not guests, people on the street, anyone within the immediate vicinity. Everyone should be fed and to their full satisfaction before the householder himself is permitted to feed himself. His duty is that everyone else must be fed, and not only the human beings, but even the animals. Everyone should be satisfied, and once that has been achieved, then the householder is allowed to feed himself. So it's the duty for householders is that they are responsible for caring for every other ashram, and beyond the ashrams, the animal species as well. Within the human species, regardless of householders not necessarily responsible for the care of other householders unless they are in need. But brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis are to be cared for and provided for by the householders, just as one would care for their own children. And animals also are cared for just as one would care for one's own children. Sometimes there are creatures who might be regarded as pests, but for the householder, he cannot regard them as pests. He has to regard them as innocent children who may be mischievous and troublesome, but he still has a duty, a responsibility to protect them and provide for them. So for each species, they have their particular food. The householder is, first of all, he must not harm them. He is not permitted to kill them, even though they may be pests. Um, he can't provide food for carnivores without incurring sin, but for herbivores, um, he can actually feed them. But the most important duty is to provide for the human beings, particularly the higher castes. So sannyasis, especially vanaprasthas and brahmacharis, are all provided for by the householders. Not just food, but also clothing and whatever other necessities there may be. All those things are to be provided by the householders. It's one of the foremost duties for a householder. And so the householder is supposed to be preoccupied with the accumulation of wealth, or the earning of wealth, not necessarily accumulation, but he should be earning sufficiently to be able to provide for others. His own family members, of course, first and foremost, but then everyone else is to be provided for and regarded equally. As far as guests coming, as I say, Srila Prabhupada mentions this quite a bit, and he also indicated that devotees in general, whether they're householders or not, if you are a resident of a temple, your position is that you are the servant of the presiding deities. So you have a particular function within the Lord's household. And it becomes your job then to provide for guests to the Lord's home. Someone visits the temple, every devotee, regardless of their ashram or varna, they have a duty to receive those guests very warmly and provide for their comfort, or whatever their needs may be. Everything should be provided. They should certainly receive the prasad of the deities. The rock bottom minimum is that some small portion of Mahaprasad must be distributed to all guests of the temple, but that's actually the lowest standard. The standard that Srila Prabhupada wanted for his temples is that when a guest comes, they receive full prasad. They're actually fed a full meal and fed to their satisfaction. Satisfaction means that even the nicest prasad, when offered, you reject because you just simply can't eat anymore. You should be, full. Anyway, these were important duties that Srila Prabhupada tasked his disciples with. And it was important enough to him that he wrote a letter about this, which was distributed to all the temples, all the ISKCON temples. ISKCON-wide, every temple received this letter from Srila Prabhupada, which went into some detail about this responsibility, that there must be sufficient prasad prepared in all the temples so that any guests who come, including The Atitin guests, those who come without prior notice, who show up unexpectedly, we have to expect that guests are going to come unexpectedly and be prepared to provide for them. We've run out of time, so
Yes, thank you, Prue. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabha Khati Sadma Krishna Prabhu